I now call on Ms Mary Casserly to make her opening remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. My name is Mary Casserly, and I would like to thank you for inviting me to speak as a person living with early onset Parkinson's, and for the help the Disability Matters Committee has given me. I was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's 3 years ago at the age of 53. I'm married with 2 sons and I live in County Wexford. I started to notice that I had symptoms like slowness of movement, fatigue and unexplained pain. I would sometimes have a tremor, and then it would started to appear more often if I was under stress. It was thought that I might have fibromyalgia or essential tremor. My sense of smell was affected, and I was referred to a consultant who did a scan that came back clear. I was then given steroids, which showed no improvement. My shoulder was sore, and I was referred to a physiotherapist. My left hand and wrist were painful, and typing long documents became very difficult. My sleep was very disturbed, and I would be awake for several hours at night. I also noticed I wasn't swinging my left arm when I was walking, and I started to drag my foot at times. I went through many years of wondering what was wrong and why I was feeling like this. We need more awareness on conditions like early onset Parkinson's, as per Article 8 of the EOPD awareness raising. My GP sent a referral to a neurologist, and with private health insurance, it still took 3 months to get an appointment. Going through the public system at that time would have meant waiting for about 18 months because there's not enough neurologists in Ireland. It's a lot to take in when you're told you have progressive, incurable disease. I left a neurologist's office in total shock and wondered, what do I do now? I was given prescription, which I paid for the first 2 months because I never heard of the long-term illness card. I went through many emotions, as now my life would not be how I imagined. It was difficult to tell our sons, who were 21 and 18 at the time. I also wondered, who else would I tell and when? Would I be treated differently? It was coming up to our 25th wedding anniversary, but I did not feel like celebrating and thought, what a gift for my husband. I was working in accounts at the time and had hoped to have worked for many more years, but as the months went on, I was finding it more difficult due to lack of sleep and pain. I did not know what was there to help me to stay working. I had not heard of employability or work adaptation grants. So 9 months after my diagnosis, I gave up work due to the symptoms of early onset Parkinson's. I felt very isolated, being diagnosed with a disease that normally affects older people. My closest experience of Parkinson's was a family member who was diagnosed in his 80s. I wonder, was I the only person in Wexford with this condition? Eventually I met people my own age, and through this peer support, I got information on what I needed to do and try to live as well as possible with Parkinson's. I was also having balance problems in the beginning because I did not know that I needed to do certain exercises to help this. I was in a supermarket one day and I went from standing to a stumble, and I could see the look on a lady's face that she assumed I was drunk. I've also been told that I look as if there's nothing wrong with me, but it's only my immediate family that get the true picture of what it's like to live with this disease. The fatigue, up for hours at night, stiffness and pain, toes curling under, making it more difficult to walk, planning your activities so when your medication is working and you're not off, struggling down the stairs with pain and trying to do household chores when fatigue has set in. My day now consists of alarms for medication, timing of meals so it doesn't interfere with this medication, physical exercise and voice practice. I used to be able to garden all day long, but now I have to come in after an hour to rest. Some days I just can't do much at all due to persistent fatigue and pain, and spend a lot of the day on the couch. Eating a meal takes longer as I'm slower cutting up food, and chewing is affected, as the reduced amount of dopamine in the brain affects all our muscles, even our tongue. My cognitive ability is also affected. I used to be able to multitask, but now I have to concentrate on one thing at a time. I'm sensitive to loud noises, so even a supermarket visit can be stressful. Stress tends to worsen my symptoms. At the moment, I am said to be in the honeymoon stage of this disease, medication helps, but it does not slow the progression. Exercise is the only known method that helps slow the progression. Advanced Parkinson's can lead to more involuntary movements, and people find it more difficult to move, even to turn in bed. Freezing of gait is another symptom of advanced Parkinson's, which means that your feet feel stuck to the ground and you cannot move forward. Parkinson's is a very misunderstood condition with so many symptoms and affects everyone differently. I applied for a medical card, but I was turned down as my husband is still working. I would like to roughly outline the cost of an average week. exercise classes €30, alternative therapies 65, supplements 12.50, travel costs to attend therapies and classes 25. That's a total of €132.50. My social welfare payment is 208, which leaves me with 76 after paying for the above. If I need to visit my GP, it costs 55, which is an extra for that week. The social welfare payments needs to be increased and a medical card granted, as there are some services only accessible by the medical card. There are many functions affected by Parkinson's. I noticed my voice had become very low and I was starting to leave social events early as people could not hear me. I eventually got onto a program called LSVT Loud. This has really helped me, and now I have the skills to help keep my voice strong as long as possible. In Wexford, I do not have access to the care of a Parkinson's nurse. I see my consultant once a year. I do have questions in between these visits. Parkinson's is a complex condition that affects everyone differently, and therefore one size does not fit all. We're not getting the care we need to help manage this disease. We should be giving a care plan on the day of diagnosis to include physiotherapy, nutrition advice, voice and occupational therapy. We also need counselling to deal with the shock and the ongoing challenges. Early intervention with a multidisciplinary approach is essential to live well with Parkinson's. A centre for a week of intensive therapies and assessment would be of huge benefit, and to be able to return again after 2 years for reassessment. This would help to monitor the progression of this disease. As per UNCRPD Article 26, habilitation and rehabilitation, and Article 10, the right to life. Parkinson's is one of the fastest growing neurological diseases and is expected to double by 2030. I'm pleading with the government to act now. Please have the services in place to help us live well with Parkinson's. Early intervention and community-based programmes will be money well spent and will take the pressure off the hospital system. For example, people need to have access to ongoing exercise programmes nationwide, incorporating balance work to help prevent falls, which can result in fractures and hospitalisation. Don't let us be the forgotten people with this disability. We have family and friends that care about us, and this affects their lives also. I'm still the same person I was before this diagnosis. Please see me and not a disability. As per UNCRPD Article 17, protecting the integrity of the person. Thank you for listening to my open safe statement, and I will welcome any questions you might have.
Very much, Mary, for your opening statement. Mary?
I'd just like to say with regards to access to regional consultants in your area. I was just speaking to somebody yesterday, a young mum whose child was sick, and she had her appointment in Dublin, 80 kilometres away, and the child got sick and they had to turn around and come back, and that meant then that her appointment is now she has to wait another 9 months for her appointment. Had the neurologist been closer to her, she could have been able to travel maybe herself. But with Parkinson's, you have your energy levels for the day. It's a bit like money. You have to spend it wisely, and she wouldn't have enough energy to drive to Dublin, have the appointment and get back on her own. So that's why we need more regional neurologists around the country. And also on the personal assistance, there's definitely cases where people with Parkinson's just don't have the energy to drive maybe to appointments, because like the energy as well, you don't have the energy to get up, get dressed, drive to, if you live in a rural area, drive a half an hour, 40 minutes to an appointment, do your therapy or whatever it is, and drive back home. It's just not possible. So a personal assistant would be of great benefit to somebody with, in advanced Parkinson's.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes. Just on the comment there about joined up thinking, there seems to be a lot of planning that's needed. It's very hard to know where people are with Parkinson's, so I feel as well that to roll out services, we need to know where people are living, where they're located, so that there's no database. Also, the lack of information to find out what the HSE are doing. My understanding is that sometimes they run courses or information or clinics, but nobody knows about them. So that they're probably finding it hard to get the information out to people like us or people with disabilities. So there needs to be more planning and more kind of connection between departments and people, and to get that information out if they are rolling out something.
I'll go to Mary first.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments there and your observation that when we're diagnosed, we have to cope with the diagnosis and plus fight as well. And it can be very hard, to do both. That you just don't want to be fighting all the time for your rights. And also on the information side, I was told that there was information given on Parkinson's, but it wasn't geared towards early onset. So I know there was a young person in his 40s, been in a group with people in their 80s, and they're talking about hoists and choking. That is scary to hear that in your 40s. So we need appropriate information for the right age group of people. So that was my comments on that, and also just on the medical card. And it is it's terrible that we're depending on our partners to support us, but I'm also mindful of the fact that I'm lucky to have a partner, but there's people living on their own and they're depending on the social welfare payment. I spoke to one man and he had an automatic car, but he had to get rid of it because he couldn't afford to meet bills. So that is meaning he's further isolated now from society because he can't drive in a rural area. So that's my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary?
Yeah, thank you very much. Interesting to hear that ME struggle to find the numbers as well, because we're saying it's somewhere between 12 and 18,000 people in Ireland living with Parkinson's. So how can you forward plan if Parkinson's is going to double by 2030? If you don't have the figures and where people are, how can you forward plan for the health service? Sorry, my internet's going there, is it? Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes, Mary.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So that's just, for planning, it just, it doesn't make sense that we can't get these figures. If we had a database, every condition should have exact numbers. And I like the idea of having a centre to coordinate everything, so that people could, say, we're a support group. So I think everybody needs peer support, so that we could link into all the support groups for every condition could link into that and say, yeah, this is where you can go and get peer support, which I found so beneficial because I wouldn't have got half the information I do have today for my peers. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, just on the multidisciplinary approach, what's needed is assessment, first of all, for physiotherapy to see what you need to do to manage this condition. I didn't realise how important exercise was, and I suppose now with research and education, years ago, people were probably told to go home and sit down, and that's the worst thing you could do for Parkinson's. And some people think that walking alone is enough, but it's not. We need to have a more wide range of movements in our everyday exercise programs for function, like getting out of the chair, twisting, turning. So education is needed around that, physiotherapy. So community-based exercise programs specifically for Parkinson's, which would help prevent falls and would also have a social element that would connect people as well. Plus speech therapy is so important. Once you've started to lose your speech, it's very hard to get it back, so that you need specific speech therapy, and there is a program called LSTT Loud, which is specifically for Parkinson's. So everybody should be just put onto that program straight away and learn the skills to maintain their voice as we go on this journey through this condition. Counselling, I think, is very important as well. People are shocked with the diagnosis. If you're in your workplace, you're probably at the height of your career. You could be the main earner in the house, and suddenly, you might have to give up work. You have children to put through college, expense, mortgage, all that sort of thing. It's very hard to cope with that, and how you're going to manage. Plus, there is kind of problems with Parkinson's in that anxiety and stress and depression can be symptoms of Parkinson's as well. So counselling is overlooked, I think, coping with this disease as well. And then, stages then, there's occupational therapy, and then assistive technology, knowledge around that. And I suppose as well, I'm just kind of touching on this briefly, just information for employers. So if you go to your employer and you say, I have this condition, give them the skills as well to know what to do, what to say, how to help you. I know that's getting away from community thing, but it's just something I wanted to put in there today as well. Some more community involved, and I think the Sláinte Care programme has it seems to be the right approach to have it in the community. Keep us well as long as possible. Keep us away from the hospital system, and give us the skills to cope with this condition. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Lauren, Mary.
Thank you for your comments there. I'd just like to say that about raising the awareness. I was many years, essential tremor, fibromyalgia, going to different physiotherapists, so eventually, to get the diagnosis, like Anna, it is, that you're not going mad. You have an answer of what is wrong with you. So I think there does need to be more awareness raising done around disabilities and the fact that some disabilities are hidden. Sometimes I feel like we're like a swan. We're calm looking on top, but there's hell going on underneath at times. So and also just to highlight the financial assistance, and also with form filling. Some people just find it so stressful to fill out this form, and stress and Parkinson's do not go well together. So why make it so complicated? People just genuinely need these things, and even for house adaptation grants, like if people are applying for to have their house more suitable, to take over a year, the condition it's progressive. It's not going to go away anytime soon, and we're praying for a cure, but at the moment there isn't. So why put people through so much stress and turmoil to have, this one lady I know, she's her bathroom's upstairs, she's still getting into the bath to have a shower. Like she lives on her own, she could fall. Those sorts of things that we're hearing every day. And why make it so hard for people they're fighting and to put stress on people who are already coping with this condition? I just don't think it's fair. And also, going back to having local services, local therapies, more neurologists, more nurses. Like, we need Parkinson's nurses. We need to have that care in between our yearly appointments. You go on medication, you have side effects. Will these calm down? What's normal? You need to have that Parkinson's complex. So we need to have that backup system. We need to be able to pick up the phone to somebody and say, what should I do now? Should I tweak it? Should I take it different times? What can I do? We just need that information. And unfortunately, it's not there at the moment. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks very much for your comments. Just one thing I would just like to point out as well, just when you're talking about a day's time off work, it's a kind of a tricky one to know what the ideal number would be. But just one thing I would like to point out, that is a lot of people are afraid to tell their employers that they have Parkinson's for fear of losing their job or not being treated equally. So that's a big issue at times. That how do you tell your employer? It's a risk that some people are worried about, taking the stress of that, and then maybe the stress of trying to hide you have Parkinson's. You're trying to hide a tremor, which makes it even worse. So they're the sorts of things that come along. Now, as I said, I've given up work, so I spend my time now trying to do the things to keep as well as possible with Parkinson's. Exercise, I do alternative therapies, and when I do need to go for my appointments in Dublin, my husband is self-employed and he can arrange to bring me. So I'm lucky like that, because not everybody is in that situation. But that's just getting back to local services as well, that people need to be near the services that they need, and to have access to a Parkinson's nurse and neurologist. And the register is essential. As I said before, how can you forward plan? It's great when you hear the government is putting money to the HSE, but how is it going to be spent is the you wouldn't give €100 to a 5-year-old. You'd have a plan laid out as to how it's going to be spent, and it's great here today that you're listening to us as patients, our voices, and what we need. It's great to have our voices being heard here today, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there has been a certain amount of research is going on in Ireland for Parkinson's, different things. One UCC are doing one study to look into services and where people are for Parkinson's, but it hasn't. The results haven't been published yet. I think it's still ongoing. So yeah. Like we're always, I suppose, worldwide, there is a lot of research. Michael J. Fox and Parkinson's, Cure Parkinson's, there's ongoing research into Parkinson's. So we're always hopeful that there will be some breakthrough soon. But at the moment, there isn't. But we're fingers crossed on research.
Okay.